Hey Kevin here, Mr. DIY Dork from DIYDork.com. Today I'm going to show you how to transform this little tiny dresser into something really cool using these belts I found at Salvation Army. So check this out, it's going to be a really cool project. Alright, so before I just tear into this thing and change everything around, I thought I'd show you what I'm working with here. So as you can see, it's a clean little mid-century dresser. Got the cool little spindly legs. That's always a good sign that something's going to sell really well. And that's what I plan to do with this. I'm going to flip it. And I'll turn the profits into Buy DIY Dork's Barn House a New Couch Fund. And anyway, I got to keep this transformation low cost. So I thought this was a really cool idea to kind of, upscale this thing a little bit. When I found it on Craigslist, it was kind of priced a little bit higher than I normally want to pay for just a single dresser. I am a cheapskate though, so some people think it's a good deal. I talked the guy down a little bit because when I showed up, I realized this thing is a lot smaller than I thought. It's probably just barely over 3 feet tall, probably, I don't know, 38 inches or something like that. It's not very tall at all. And it's only about 14 inches wide, so it might be kind of a downer when I'm trying to sell it. But I think the styling will be enough to get someone to buy it, and I can probably at least double my money on it. So what I plan to do is refinish the dresser itself. It's got the little wood legs. I'll just sand them down and then probably just clear coat them, maybe a little bit of stain. And then normally on a dresser like this, clean lined, the the body will be kind of beat up and then the drawers will be in pretty good shape. But on this one, the body's actually in really good shape. So I think I'm just going to sand off this kind of golden finish, and then I don't know if I'll stain or just clear coat as is, and I'm gonna leave the body wood. And then the drawer fronts, they have a little bit of damage, not much. We're talking like nicked corners and things like that. I think what I'm gonna do is sand them down, smooth them out, and then I'm gonna paint them white. Then we're gonna get rid of these handles here that I don't think fit with the style of this dresser. I'll save them for something else. What we're gonna do is use these belts instead. Found these belts at Salvation Army. They were only $1 a piece. Amazing deal. Couldn't believe they were that cheap. When I went to Goodwill to check them out, all their belts were $2.99, and they didn't have near the selection. So Salvation Army to the rescue here. So what I plan to do, these are held on with 2 screws. So what we're going to do is take them out. I'll keep the 2 holes, and we're going to use the belt. So I'm going to make the belt a little longer. I'm going to round it off, go from one end to the other, round off over there too, and it's going to have just enough slack so that it kind of pulls out like a handle. I think that would be a pretty cool little idea. So anyway, how about we get started with this and I show you how I change it up. Alright, so first things first, of course, I'm going to take off the handles and put them aside. I will save them for another project, but just don't feel them on this one. So I'll take all them off, and then I'm going to go ahead and take the feet off of the dresser itself. So let me get these done and I'll show you that next. Alright, then as for the legs on the bottom of the dresser here, I decided to not even mess with taking off the bracket. I'm just going to take the legs off myself. The cool thing about these is that they are screw-on. Of course, this one's tight. There we go. Just screw them off, and then I can refinish the wood on these. And then they also do have the bottom part of the leg is like a brass. And I actually bought stainless bolts, or actually stainless screws to hold the belts on. So I think I may refinish the brass part of these legs with like a silver spray paint. It's not exactly the best way to do it, but I think it will help make these look a little better, and I don't have to mess with sanding them and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'll take these off and then we'll start getting into the actual body work on this thing. I'm just about ready to start sanding everything, so I'm using my little orbital sander here. I have a 60 grit pad on there right now, which is pretty rough, but it will tear this finish off really quick. And then I can smooth it out with like a 120 or 150 or something like that. Okay, also, since I'm going to be painting the drawer fronts, I really only have to smooth them out enough that I can't feel any texture. Like right now where the handles used to be, I can feel like a dirt buildup, so I'm going to sand that off and then just put enough tooth on there that the primer and paint will stick. But on the body of the dresser, since I want to go all the way down and possibly even change the color of the wood with a stain, I need to completely take off the finish. So I'm going to sand deep enough to get rid of the clear coat and then any color that might be on there. So I'm going to sand it a little more. But since it's a little simple box, it won't take long at all. So let me do that and then we'll move on from there. So all this old finish come off really easily. And I went ahead and sanded it like you just saw with 60 grit, and then I went over it with 150 grit, and I decided it wasn't quite smooth enough. I want to smooth it out even more. So I just grabbed some 220. I'm going to do it by hand, just real quick, and all I'm really doing is knocking off any of the rough spots that I see. It just gives it a really silky feel. So once I've just hand sanded everything really quickly, then I'll move on to painting and staining, and I'll show all that to you next. All right, so I brought everything in from the cold. It was about 22 degrees today while I was out there sanding, and just got over some snow. So super cold out there, but I'm glad I finally got everything all finished up, and especially the body of the dresser. I got it finished in a 220 to be a super smooth grit, so that I can put on some of this light walnut colored wood stain. Now the drawer fronts, I could have just left them at the 150 because I'm gonna prime them and then paint them, and that'd been fine. But I decided just to do it all the right way. So all I'm gonna do is apply a little stain. I really like this color too. And we'll see how it reacts to this wood. I'm actually not really sure what kind of wood this dresser is, but it doesn't really matter. It looks really nice. So anyway, I'm just gonna wipe this on there, and then once I get a good coat on there, I'll kind of buff it a little bit to wipe any excess that might be on there, and then I'll just let it dry. And while this is drying, I can get working on fitting the belts to the drawer fronts, and then start getting them painted up. So I'll show you all that next.